So this is how you work with 2D surfaces. But let's say you have to make this shape and make it in 3D or any of the shapes, which means what will end up happening is this so-called square or rectangle that you've got, all you need to now figure is what is the height that you require, and you first construct that in the imaginary cube or cuboid that you have in place. Now once you have that going for you, then figuring out this midpoint becomes easier, and similarly these reference points also becomes easier because you already know the edge length. And then when you join them together, this is what you end up seeing. So that is how your octagon looks if it was to be extruded. Okay, same thing will also happen if you have an hexagon. So where did we make the hexagon? There it is. So if let's say that's the hexagon, if I decide to take these lines forward, so let me just make this darker. Obviously, because it's a construction line, I can't have it darker than my final outline. As a result, I'm choosing these dotted lines. And let's say that is how the shape looks. This is the hexagon that we had constructed. Now, if this was to be extruded, first figure out the height, make your cuboid at that height. That midpoint remains the same over here. This midpoint will need to be constructed, half edge length that side, half edge length here. Join the two, join this one, join these guys, and that is somehow, or that is how your product should look. So that is how it would work for you. You will have to obviously use the tools, which means either a compass or a protractor or a steel edge. And always remember, it's called a steel edge. It's not called a scale. Okay. People may choose to call it a ruler also, but the correct term for one of those steel scales that you have is a steel edge, because it's made out of stainless steel and it has a very fine edge to it. Also, because if we end up using a plastic ruler or a wooden ruler, a lot of times when you're cutting it with a cutter, you may go onto the scale, which means that over a period of time, this edge will have certain parts of it missing, which means that the next time you want to create a straight line, that won't happen because of these pieces missing. On a steel edge, these will never happen. So the line that you will get will always be a fine line. So a steel edge is something which is a better scale, so as to say, to use. Another thing you need to remember is if you have a steel edge, I would suggest, if say this is the steel edge, when you're looking at it, you bend it slightly so that the steel edge is like that. In this, what happens is when you put it against paper, when you have to draw, you press it down, you draw your line. When you leave it, it will pop up. Why is this important? Because most of the times when you draw with a scale or with a pencil and you have a scale next to it and you do this to it, it will smear the graphite. But if the scale just pops up, then whatever you have constructed is not going to smudge. So that's a very good thing to keep in mind.